You're standing at the edge of a still lake just before dawn. The surface is so calm that the water and sky seem to dissolve into each other. There is no clear line where one ends and the other begins. The trees along the far shore appear both above and below. The stars hang in two places at once, and for a moment you can't tell what is real and what is reflection. This is the kind of seeing the Buddha pointed to when he spoke of the 3 doors of liberation. Not doors you walk through once and leave behind. Doors that open again and again, each time you're willing to look without deciding what you're looking at first. The lake doesn't need you to name it. It doesn't ask you to call it beautiful or deep or anything at all. It simply is, and in that simple being, something loosens in the one who watches. Take a breath now. Let it come in without effort. Let it leave the same way. The 3 doors are called emptiness, signlessness, and aimlessness. These words sound abstract. They sound like philosophy, but they're not. They're invitations to see what's already here, beneath the names we've given everything. Emptiness doesn't mean nothing exists. It means things exist without the weight we've added to them. The lake is empty of being permanent. It's empty of being separate from the rain that fills it, the sun that warms it, the ground that holds it. It has no independent self, and yet it's completely here, completely real. Just not solid in the way we thought. When you see this, even for a moment, something releases. The tightness around needing things to stay the way they are. The fear that if you let go of your story about something, it will vanish. It doesn't vanish. It becomes more vivid, more itself. Singlessness is what happens when you stop reading meaning into everything. The lake isn't trying to teach you a lesson. The reflection isn't a symbol. It's just light bending. Water being water. When you see without signs, without labels, without the need to interpret, the world stops being a test you might fail. It stops being a message you need to decode. You can rest then. You can let the trees be trees. Let the sky be sky. Let your breath move without turning it into progress or proof of anything. And aimlessness. This one sounds dangerous. We're taught to have goals, to know where we're going, to measure whether we're getting closer or falling behind. But aimlessness here doesn't mean drifting. It means releasing the craving that drives you forward. The craving that says this moment isn't enough, that you need to become something other than what you are. The lake doesn't aim to be deeper. The reflection doesn't try to be clearer. They simply respond to conditions. Rain comes, the lake rises. Wind comes, the surface moves. There's no resistance, no ambition. And yet everything that needs to happen happens. Sit with that for a breath. Let your body be as it is. Not working toward anything. Not trying to feel calm or centered or awake. Just here. Just breathing. These 3 doors open onto the same room. They're not separate practices. They're 3 ways of describing what it's like when you stop adding extra layers to experience. When you stop insisting that things be permanent. When you stop labeling everything as good or bad. When you stop racing towards some future version of peace. What remains is simple, almost too simple to notice. The sound of air moving in and out. The weight of your body against what holds it. The knowing that you're here, aware, alive, without needing to make a story out of it. The Buddha taught these doors not as ideas to think about, but as ways of seeing to practice. You don't master them. You return to them, again and again. Each time the mind builds a new wall, a new story, a new demand that life be different than it is. The lake at dawn doesn't hold yesterday's reflection. It doesn't rehearse tomorrow's. It meets the light that's here. It shows what's present, and when the wind comes, it moves. When the wind stops, it stills. You can do this too. You can meet what's here without needing it to be a sign of something else. Without needing it to last. Without aiming toward a better moment than this one. Let's begin by sitting with the first door. Not to understand it. Not to achieve it. Just to see what happens when you look at anything, at this breath, at this moment, and ask quietly, what is this made of, and can I find where it begins or ends? There is a moment that comes to most of us, usually without warning. You are holding something, a plan you have made, a thought about yourself, a feeling that has settled into your chest, and you notice that you are gripping it. Not with your hands, but with your attention, your will, your whole sense of who you are. The grip is so familiar that you do not notice it until something shifts. The plan changes. The thought dissolves. The feeling begins to fade. And in that moment, you feel the strain. This is the beginning of suffering, not because change itself is painful, but because we meet change with a closed fist. Imagine holding water in your hand. If you keep your palm open, fingers relaxed, the water rests there. You can feel its weight, its temperature, its movement. You know it. But the moment you close your fingers and squeeze, everything changes. The water cannot stay. It leaks between your knuckles, or it slips away entirely, and your hand grows tense from the effort of holding. The tighter you grip, the faster it goes, and the more your arm aches from the strain. This is what we do with experience. We meet life as if it were something to be held permanently, something that should stay the way we want it. We grip our thoughts as if they were solid facts about the world. We grip our feelings as if they defined us. We grip our plans as if the future had already been decided. And all the while, life, like water in a closed fist, is already moving, already changing, already leaving. The Buddha taught something very simple about this. He said that all formations, all the things that arise in experience, are empty of a separate, unchanging self. This does not mean that experience itself is unreal. The water is real. The feeling in your chest is real. The thought moving through your mind is real. But none of these things belongs to you in the way you think it does. None of them is solid. None of them will stay. When you truly see this, not as an idea, but as something you notice directly in your own experience, something shifts. You begin to turn away from suffering, not by rejecting life or becoming cold, but by meeting it differently. There are 3 ways this turning shows itself, and they are not separate. They are 3 doors to the same room, and that room is freedom. The first is emptiness. When you look closely at anything you are gripping, a thought, a memory, a sense of who you are, you cannot find a solid, separate thing. The thought is made of words, images, sensations, all of which are borrowed from the world around you. Your sense of self is made of the body, the mind, the stories you tell, the people you know, the air you breathe. There is no kernel inside that is purely you, untouched by change. When you see this clearly, the grip naturally loosens. There is nothing to hold. The second is signlessness. This means turning away from the signs, the labels, the marks we use to say this is good, this is bad, this is mine, this is not. When you stop dividing experience into the things you want to keep and the things you want to push away, a different kind of peace becomes possible. You are not trying to hold on to the good and reject the bad. You are simply aware. The water flows. The hand remains open. The third is aimlessness. This does not mean you stop living or caring. It means you stop grasping at experience as a means to some final destination where you will finally be complete. You stop treating the present moment as something to be used up, something to get through on the way to somewhere better. When you release this hidden aim, this constant reaching, what remains is the simple fact of being alive right now. These three doors open together. You cannot pass through one without passing through the others. Notice what happens in your own experience when you soften your grip even slightly. Perhaps there is something you have been holding tightly today. A worry about tomorrow. A story about what someone meant when they said something to you. A plan you have been protecting. A feeling you have been trying to control. See if you can sense where that grip lives in your body. Is it in your jaw, your shoulders, your belly, your chest? Now, without trying to change anything, simply observe what happens when you soften, not when you let go entirely. That is often too much, too fast, just when you soften. When you allow your attention to rest more lightly on the thing you have been holding, what do you notice? Does the thing you were gripping change? Does it disappear? Or does it simply become less solid, less urgent, less like something that must be controlled? This is not a technique. It is an observation, and it is available to you at any moment, in any situation. The water in your fist is already moving. Your hand is already tired from holding. The only question is whether you will notice, and whether you will let your fingers open. There is a question that lives quietly in most of us. It arrives without announcement, often in moments when we are still enough to notice it. The question is simple. It asks, where is the solid ground? We live as if there must be one. We search for it in certainty, in a belief that holds still, in a feeling that does not shift, in a person who will not leave, in a self that remains the same from one breath to the next. We walk through our days looking for markers, for fixed points, for something we can point to and say, this is real. This will not dissolve. The searching itself is not wrong, but it rests on something that cannot be found. In the oldest teachings, there is a way of speaking about this. The Buddha pointed to three doors, three openings through which a person might walk and find what they were truly looking for. But these doors do not work the way doors usually work. They do not open onto a room where things are finally solid. They open onto something else entirely. The first door is emptiness. Not emptiness as in absence or void, but emptiness of what we thought was permanent. When you look closely at any experience, any sensation, any thought, you find that nothing in it is independent. Nothing stands alone. Everything is held in relationship with everything else. A color exists only because light touches it. A sound exists only because ears receive it. A thought arises only because conditions allow it. There is no thing, in itself, waiting to be discovered. There is only this, the meeting of causes and conditions, moment by moment. When you see this clearly, something shifts. Not dramatically, quietly. The desperate searching begins to ease. The second door is signlessness. This means nothing carries a permanent mark. We are used to reading signs. A red light means stop. A closed door means do not enter. We believe that if we can just read the sign correctly, we will know what to do, who to be, what is safe. But life does not work this way. The same situation that meant one thing yesterday means something different today. The same word from a loved one that brought comfort once brings confusion the next time. We are constantly trying to fix the meaning of things, to make them stay still long enough to be reliable. But meaning itself is not fixed. It moves. It changes with context, with our own state of mind, with time itself. Morning mist dissolves as you walk through it. You do not need to know where the mist ends and the air begins. You do not need to find the exact threshold where fog becomes clarity. You simply walk, and the mist is there, and then it is not. There is no moment where you can point and say, here. Here is where it changed. The change is continuous. The boundary is not a line but a gradual becoming. The third door is aimlessness. This is perhaps the strangest one to modern ears. We are taught to have aims, to set goals, to move toward something. But aimlessness is not laziness or drift. It is the releasing of the idea that there is somewhere else you need to be. That there is a state you need to reach where finally, at last, things will be right. Aimlessness is the discovery that the search itself was the barrier. The moment you stop looking for the solid ground is the moment you realize you are already standing on it. Not because the ground became solid, but because you stopped needing it to be. These three doors are not separate. They are one door, and the teaching says the gate has no gate. Walk through without looking for the threshold. What does this mean? It means you cannot find the opening by searching for it. You cannot locate the moment of passage. You cannot stand at the threshold and prepare yourself. There is no preparation that works. There is only the walking itself. And so there is something to do, not a doing that leads somewhere, but a doing that is its own arrival. Sit quietly. Choose one sensation in your body right now. It might be the weight of your shoulders, the warmth of your hands, the texture of breath at your nostrils. Pick something that seems solid, something that feels like it is definitely there. Now do not try to change it. Do not try to make it mean something. Simply rest your attention on it. Let it be as it is, and watch. Without naming, without thinking about what you are watching. Just notice, does it stay exactly the same? Or does something in it shift? A slight deepening, a subtle release. A quality that was there a moment ago now fading. A new texture arriving. You do not need to chase these changes. You do not need to understand them. Simply let them move through your awareness, like morning mist moving through a landscape. The mist does not ask permission to dissolve. The sensation does not ask permission to change. There is no gate. There is only this, the continuous arising and passing of what is. And you walking through it, not trying to find where you are. Already here. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes not from doing too much, but from never stopping the attempt to do things rightly. You might recognize it in yourself. It lives in the shoulders. It lives in the way you breathe, even when you are supposed to be resting. It is the exhaustion of always aiming. We arrive at rest the way we arrive at work. With a goal, we think I will rest for 20 minutes so that I can be more productive. I will meditate so that I can be calmer. I will sleep well so that tomorrow goes better. Even our stopping points become destinations. Even our peace becomes a project. This is not laziness we are speaking of. It is something more subtle. It is the mind's habit of always facing forward, always reaching. Like a hand that has forgotten how to open. In the earliest Buddhist teachings, there is a door that is rarely discussed in the world outside. It is called the door of aimlessness. Alongside it stand two other doors, emptiness and signlessness. These three are called the doors of liberation. Not because they lead somewhere, but because when you walk through them, you stop needing to arrive. When there is no goal, there is no tension. When there is no tension, there is peace. This is not poetry. It is observable. Right now, notice what happens in your body when you think of something you need to accomplish. The chest tightens slightly. The breath becomes shallower. A kind of held quality enters the shoulders. The mind leans forward into time. You are not yet where you need to be, so you are not quite here. Now notice what happens when that task is complete, or when you decide it does not matter. The shoulders drop. The breath deepens without effort. There is a settling, not because anything changed in the world, but because the direction you were facing has relaxed. Aimlessness is not the absence of action. A leaf does not aim as it falls from the branch. It does not think I must reach the ground by the most efficient path, and yet it falls. It moves. It responds to wind and gravity with perfect precision. There is no tension in its falling. There is only the falling itself, and the conditions that make it so. We have learned to believe that without an aim, nothing would happen, that we would collapse into inertia, that the world would stop. But look at a leaf. Look at water flowing downhill. Look at your own heart beating in your chest right now, without you having to decide each beat, without you aiming toward anything. Life moves without your constant direction, and when you stop directing it, something releases. The problem is not that we have goals. The problem is that we have forgotten how to rest without turning rest into a goal. We have forgotten how to simply be without being in service of becoming. Even our moments of peace are supposed to be productive. They are supposed to make us better, calmer, more enlightened. And so we are never actually resting. We are always performing rest. We are always reaching for the peace that is supposed to come from not reaching. This is the trap, and it is a kind trap, because it comes from wanting to be well, but it is still a trap. The door of aimlessness opens when you realize that you do not need to arrive anywhere to be safe. That this moment, without improvement, without becoming something other than what you are, is already complete. Not because it is perfect, but because completion is not what you thought it was. Completion is not a destination you reach. It is what happens when you stop trying to reach. Emptiness and signlessness are woven into this. Emptiness means that nothing you are trying to become has a solid, permanent self. The person you are trying to become through rest and meditation does not exist as a fixed thing. There is no final version of you waiting at the end of your efforts. Siglessness means that you do not need a sign that you are doing it right. You do not need proof of progress. You do not need to feel different in order to know something is shifting. When these three doors open together, the mind stops looking for confirmation. It stops keeping score. It simply rests. Here is what becomes possible now. Sit for 5 minutes. That is all, 5 minutes. And in those 5 minutes, do not try to fix anything. Do not try to improve your breath. Do not try to make your mind quieter or your body more relaxed. Do not try to become more meditative. Simply breathe. Feel the breath moving. Feel the body sitting. Feel the sounds around you. Feel the space inside your awareness. If the mind wanders, notice that it wandered. That is not a failure. There is no arrival point you are supposed to reach. There is no state you are supposed to achieve. You are not trying to get somewhere else. You are simply here for 5 minutes without the project of becoming. Notice what happens when you stop aiming. Notice how the body feels different when the direction releases. Notice how the breath deepens when you are not trying to deepen it. This is not something you are creating. This is what emerges when you stop trying to create it. A leaf does not become peaceful as it falls. It is peaceful because there is no other place it is supposed to be. That is the taste of aimlessness, not the absence of life, but life without the constant strain of reaching. And in that taste, something that was always tight begins, very gently, to let go. There is a silence between two notes in a song. Not the absence of sound, but the space that lets each note be heard. Without it, there would be only noise. The notes would blur together, indistinguishable. The silence does not erase the music. It makes the music possible. We live most of our lives trying to fill that space. A thought ends, and before we can rest in the gap, we reach for the next one. A conversation pauses, and we rush to speak. A moment of not knowing arrives, and we immediately turn to our phone, a memory, a plan. We are afraid of the empty space. We believe something is missing there, so we fill it. But what if the space is not empty in the way we think? What if emptiness is not a void that needs filling, but the very ground from which all things appear and return? The silence between the notes is not dead. It is alive with possibility. It is what allows the next note to be born. This is one of the 3 doors of liberation. The first door, emptiness. It is called a door because it opens onto something, not towards something we have to acquire or become, but toward what is already here, already true, already the case. We do not enter emptiness as a destination. We recognize it as the nature of everything that arises. A thought appears in your mind. You notice it. Where did it come from? Not from nothing. It came from conditions. From the body, the sense organs, the world touching you, memory, habit, the time of day. Countless threads wove together, and suddenly there was a thought. You did not make it. It simply arose. And then, if you do not push it away or cling to it, it dissolves. It returns to the space from which it came. That space does not disappear when the thought is there. The thought floats in it, temporary as clouds in the sky. The sky does not become less sky when clouds pass through. The space does not become less spacious. The emptiness does not become less empty. This is what emptiness means. Not the absence of things, but the open nature that allows all things to be. We spend our time attending to the clouds. Which cloud is pleasant? Which is threatening? How to keep the good ones and push away the bad ones? We rarely notice the sky itself. We rarely rest in the space that holds everything. And so we suffer. Not because the clouds are there. Clouds are natural. Thoughts are natural. Sensations are natural. We suffer because we are always grasping at the clouds, always trying to control them, always filling the space between them with more clouds, more noise, more doing. We cannot bear the openness. But the openness is not hostile. It is not cold or lonely. It is the most intimate thing there is. It is the space in which your own being arises and returns. It is the space between your heartbeats, the space between your breaths, the space between one moment and the next. When you sit quietly and watch your mind, you will notice something. A thought comes. It has a shape, texture, a duration, and then it passes. There is a moment where it is no longer there, but the next thought has not yet arrived. That gap is very small at first. You might barely notice it, but it is there, a space, an opening. In that opening, nothing needs to happen. You do not need to figure anything out. You do not need to become anyone. You do not need to fix yourself or your life. The opening simply is, and you are in it. Most of us have learned to be uncomfortable with this. We have been taught that emptiness is something to fear, that we must always be productive, always be thinking, always be moving towards something. The silence between the notes feels like failure, like we are wasting time, like we should be doing something. But what if the silence is the most important part? What if the emptiness is not something we have lost, but something we have been refusing to recognize? The space between the notes is not a gap in the music. It is the music itself, resting. It is the ground that makes the music possible. This is why it is called a door of liberation. When you stop fighting the emptiness, when you stop trying to fill every gap with noise, you are free. Not free from your life. Free from the constant effort, to make yourself into something other than what you are, free from the exhaustion of always reaching for the next thing. The practice is simple, though not easy. After a thought passes, notice the space before the next one arrives. Do not try to make the space longer. Do not try to deepen it or improve it. Simply notice it. Rest in it for as long as it naturally lasts. Then the next thought will come, and you will notice that too. And then another space, another opening. You are not trying to stop thinking. You are not trying to achieve some special state. You are simply noticing what is already happening. The space is already there. The emptiness is already the nature of your mind. You are only learning to see it, to rest in it, to let it be. There is a quiet anxiety that lives in many of us. It whispers that our days must count for something permanent, that our actions must leave a mark, that if we do something kind, or work hard, or create something, it should somehow persist, should prove we were here, should matter in a way that lasts. We move through our lives collecting these marks: a completed project, a word of advice given to a friend, a meal prepared, a difficult conversation that went well, and we hold on to them. We review them. We tell the story of them to ourselves and others. We need them to stay solid, to stay ours, to keep mattering in the way they mattered when we first did them. But notice what happens when you try to hold water in your hand. The tighter you grip, the faster it runs through your fingers. There is a teaching from the old Zen masters that points to something different. The bird flies across the sky and leaves no trace. This is not a poetic way of saying the bird's flight does not matter. It means something much quieter. It means the bird does not insist on its flight mattering. The bird does not circle back to check if the air remembers it passed through. The bird simply flies. The sky opens. The bird moves. The sky closes. The action is complete. This is one of the 3 doors of liberation in Buddhist teaching. It is called signlessness. Not the absence of signs, but the absence of clinging to signs. The absence of needing your actions to leave a permanent mark in order for them to have been real. Think of footsteps on wet sand at the shore. You walk along the beach and your feet press into the sand and water. The footprints are clear. They are real. They happened. But then the tide comes in. The waves wash over them. The sand smooths itself. In a few hours, there is no trace that you walked there at all. Did your walk matter less because it left no mark? Did it become unreal because the evidence disappeared? The footsteps were real while they were being made. Your weight was in them. Your intention was in them. Your body was moving through space. That was complete. That was whole. And then it was over, and the beach became blank again, ready for the next person, the next tide, the next moment. This is what signlessness means. Not that your actions do not matter, but that they matter in a different way than we usually think. They matter in the moment they happen. They matter because they are alive in that moment. And then they are done. And that is enough. We have been trained to believe that actions only count if they accumulate. If they build a resume, if they create a story we can tell, if they add up to something we can point to and say, look, this is who I am. This is what I have done. This is why I matter. But this belief is exhausting. It means we are always working for the future, always trying to secure something that cannot be secured, always trying to make permanent something that is by nature temporary. The bird does not carry the memory of every flight. The sky does not keep a record. And yet the bird continues to fly. The sky continues to hold it. When you understand this, something shifts. You begin to notice that you are already free to act, without needing the action to prove anything. You are already free to help someone without needing them to remember your help forever. You are already free to do good work without needing the work to define you. This is not laziness. This is not indifference. The bird flies with full attention. It uses all of its skill and awareness. But it does not fly in order to leave a mark. It flies because flying is what it does. So here is what becomes possible. You can do one small task today, something real and necessary, something you would normally do. Wash a cup. Write an email. Listen to someone who is struggling. Help carry something heavy. The task is real. Your attention is real. Your care, if you bring it, is real. And when the task is finished, you let it go. No review. No mental note of how well you did it. No story about it. No adding it to the list of things that prove you are a good person. You simply finish, and then the next moment begins. And you are not carrying the last moment with you. This is not as easy as it sounds, because we have spent years learning to hold on to our actions, to make them mean something, to use them as proof. But it is simpler than it sounds, because it requires nothing but attention and release. When you do this, even once, you begin to feel the lightness of it, the freedom, the way actions can be complete without needing to be permanent, the way you can matter without needing to leave a mark, the way the tide can wash away your footprints, and you can still know that you walked. And in this understanding, something very quiet happens. You realize that you yourself are also like the footprints. You are also temporary. You are also washing away. You are also not a permanent mark on the world. And somehow, knowing this, you are more free to live. There is a peculiar fear that lives in the human heart. It is not the fear of pain or loss, though those are real enough. It is something quieter and more pervasive. It is the fear of having nowhere to go. We move through our days with a kind of invisible compass, always pointing forward. There is something to achieve, someone to become, a destination that matters. Even when we rest, we are often resting towards something. We sleep to be productive tomorrow. We meditate to be calmer, clearer, better. We practice to reach liberation itself, as if liberation were a place we could arrive at, a state we could grasp and hold. This forward momentum feels like safety. It gives the day a shape. It tells us we are not wasting time. It tells us we are not lost. But notice what happens when that compass stops working, when the goal dissolves, when there is no one to become. The mind panics a little. It reaches for the next thing. It asks, what is the point? What am I doing here? The emptiness that opens up feels dangerous, not free. The Buddha taught about 3 doors that lead out of suffering. They are called the 3 doors of liberation. The first is emptiness. The second is signlessness. The third is aimlessness. They are not 3 separate rooms you walk through in order. They are more like 3 ways of understanding the same opening, and they all point to something that contradicts our deepest habit, that liberation is not found by reaching somewhere else. It is the letting go of the need to reach. Emptiness does not mean nothing exists. It means that everything you perceive is empty of a permanent, unchanging self. The things you cling to, your identity, your achievements, your future, they have no solid core. They are processes, not objects, patterns, not possessions. When you look directly at this, something shifts. The grip loosens. Sinlessness means there is no sign pointing to a self that needs to be saved. No mark that says you are broken and need fixing. No label that tells you who you are supposed to become. This is harder to feel than it sounds. We are so used to reading signs about ourselves. The mirror, other people's reactions, our own thoughts about our thoughts. All of these create a sense of someone in here who needs improvement. Siglessness is the quiet recognition that there is no such someone. There is only experience arising and passing. There is only this, and aimlessness. This is where the fear lives most acutely. Aimlessness does not mean you drift without intention. It means you release the need for a distant goal to justify what you are doing right now. It means you stop trying to become something other than what is already here. A bird does not fly toward the sky. The bird rests on the air itself, held by nothing, supported by what is already present. There is no arrival point. There is only the resting itself. We imagine that without a goal, we will collapse into meaninglessness. But watch what actually happens when you let the goal go, even for a moment. The breath is still here. The body is still here. Sensation is still here. Awareness is still here. Nothing essential has disappeared. What has disappeared is only the story about where you should be instead of where you are. The fear of aimlessness is the fear that we will discover we were always already here, and that here is enough. This is terrifying because it means we cannot blame our unhappiness on not having arrived yet. It means we cannot postpone peace until the next achievement. It means we have to meet this moment, this breath, this life, exactly as it is. But there is something else underneath the fear. There is a deep rest available when you stop running. Not the rest you earn after work. Not the rest that is a means to an end. The rest that is simply what happens when you stop pushing. Like a bird settling on air, held by nothing, moving with what is already there. The three doors open together. When you sense the emptiness of the self you thought you were protecting, the need for signs begins to fall away. When you stop reading signs about who you should become, aimlessness becomes possible. And when you release the aim, you discover that emptiness was never lonely. It was always full of life, just not the life you were trying to build. This is where equanimity enters. Equanimity is not indifference. It is the steady presence that remains when you stop fighting reality. It is the clarity that comes when you are no longer divided between what is and what should be. It is the natural ease of a mind that has nowhere else to be. You might sit with this quietly, not as an exercise, not as a way to get somewhere, just as a question that you let live in your body. What if there is nowhere to go? What if nothing needs to become something else? What if the liberation you have been seeking is the simple willingness to be here, held by nothing, resting on what is already present? Let that question settle. Feel how the body responds when the forward momentum pauses. Notice what arises when you release the need to reach. The three doors do not lead somewhere else. They open right where you are. When you look at a thought and see it has no solid core, that is emptiness. When you stop labeling the moment and let it be what it is, that is signlessness. When you release the need for things to be different, that is aimlessness. Each door is just a way of relaxing the grip. You do not need to master them. You do not need to hold them perfectly in mind. They are not achievements to collect or states to maintain. They are more like reminders. When you feel caught, when the mind tightens around a story or a fear, you can remember this too is empty of permanence. This too can be met without needing to name it. This too does not require you to fix it. The doors remain open. You can return as many times as you need. What happens when you stop trying to arrive somewhere? The breath continues. Sounds come and go. The body shifts its weight. Life does not wait for you to understand it fully before it continues. And that is a kindness. You are allowed to be here, just as you are, without having solved everything. This is not resignation. It is the opposite. It is the willingness to meet what is real. When you stop insisting that experience be other than it is, you make room for something quieter, not excitement, not transcendence, just a softening, a little more space between the stimulus and the reaction. A little more breath before the next move. You might notice this softening in small ways. The irritation that used to spiral now just passes. The worry that gripped you begins to loosen on its own. You do not become invincible. You just become a little less interested in fighting with the moment. And in that space, something else can grow. Metta begins here. Loving kindness is not something you add on top of practice. It is what naturally arises when you stop hardening against life. When you see that all beings are caught in the same currents of craving and clinging. When you see that everyone is trying to avoid pain and find peace, the heart softens. May you be at ease. Not because you have earned it. Not because you have done everything right. Just because you are here, breathing aware. May you be free from unnecessary suffering. Not all suffering ends, but much of it is optional. Much of it comes from the stories we tell, the identities we defend, the futures we demand. When those begin to loosen, what remains is workable. May you meet yourself with patience. This path is not quick. Insight does not arrive on schedule. Some days the doors feel wide open. Other days you forget they exist. That is how it goes. You are not failing. You are just walking. And as you offer this kindness to yourself, let it widen. May all beings be at ease. The ones you love, the ones you hardly know, the ones who have hurt you, the ones you will never meet. Each one moving through their own confusion, their own longing, their own brief time here. May all beings be free from unnecessary suffering, not because they deserve it more or less than anyone else, but because suffering is heavy and no one benefits from carrying more than they must. May all beings find peace. Not the peace of having everything go their way, but the peace of not needing it to. This is not a prayer that changes the world from the outside. It is a practice that changes how you meet the world. When you stop seeing others as obstacles or threats or objects, when you see them as beings just like you, the quality of your attention shifts. You become a little less defended, a little more open. And that openness is the fruit of walking through the 3 doors. You can return to this anytime. When the mind gets tight, when the day feels too heavy, when you forget what any of this was for, the doors do not close. Emptiness is always here, waiting to show you that nothing is as solid as it seems. Siglessness is always available, inviting you to stop naming and just notice. Aimlessness is always present, reminding you that you do not need to get anywhere. If you would like to continue, there are other teachings waiting, but there is no hurry. You can stay here as long as you need, rest if you need to rest, breathe if you need to breathe. You are enough just as you are.